Hello, everybody. I hope you're going well. Today, I will show you an incredible game that happened during the 2013 World Chess Championship match that opposed Anand against the young and fresh Magnus Carlsen. So that game is actually pretty incredible. The reason why I'm showing you that game is because Carlsen already won 2 games and Anand almost had Carlsen. He had it on the nose. D4 by Anand. Okay, knight f6. C4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, and now a very aggressive move, f3. The idea is just to go a4 and kill you. e5, bishop g5. I mean, the queen which will just attack you and tra-la-la. So, of course, we have to react in the center. Since white wants to put another pawn in the center, we have to do it first. So d5. Now, if e4, we can just get the pawn, and that is good. So, a3, because the bishop is still pinning the knight, and now bishop c3, b takes c3, and c5. Just trying to continue the attack on the central pawns. So the best move is actually recommended to be c takes d5, and that is also what was played in the game. But with a lot of analysis, actually there is a very incredible move which you can employ during your chess games, and that is king f2. And king f2 is an incredible move. The idea is that you will just go e3, bishop d3, knight e2, and h4, h5, h6. And that is a real plan. That is something very serious. And I can just recommend you to write down in the comment section if you want me to analyze this move even further. So c takes d5, e takes d5, just opening up the bishop, and now e3. Notice that white wanted to play super aggressively with e4, but it doesn't work, because Magnus just puts all his pawns in the center. For those of you who ask, we cannot take the pawn on c5, or if you want, we can, but even after queen a5, notice that everything is weak. And if queen d4 defending everything, there is knight c6. We have at some point, for example, to go queen e3 defending everything, bishop e6. Okay, let's say bishop d2, for example. We can just castle, and notice that the queen is just blocking all the pieces to come out. So let's say you go f4, I can at the very least go bishop f5, knight f3, for example, rook e8, for example, queen there, knight e4, and yeah, the game is almost lost. And if you go queen g1 immediately, but still not knight e4. If c4, I can at the very least just take, and everything is pinned, and you will just get mated. You're not even up a pawn anymore. At the very least, I will get another pawn, and c3, c2, c1, queen is coming, and you have nothing. Just stop playing chess. So e3 instead of taking on c5, and now c4. So it is probably a preparation by Magnus Carlsen. Playing castles or queen c7 are decent moves. The idea is just to play knight d7, and for example, rook on c8 and take and so on. So the usual plan is just to open up the queen side. But now c4 is a very strange move. It is just closing everything. The idea is that at some point, I will have to go b5, a5, b4. And when you will take with the c pawn, I will have a passed pawn. Okay, knight e2. Okay, knight c6, it's alright. I said that knight e2 isn't that accurate, but it's not that the move is inaccurate, just the position is wrong. The whole position is wrong. With some analysis, other grandmasters finally understood that g4 was the best move in that position. The idea is, for example, let's say we go knight c6, there is knight e2, and we will go knight g3, and that is a pretty nice idea. And we have the a5 square, the f5 square. So knight e2 directly is a little bit strange because h5 can be played and there is no more g4. But of course, none of these two players had this in mind, so Magnus Carlsen played knight c6, and now Anand played g4, which is a great move since he had the idea. So that is definitely incredible. That is definitely more than incredible. Castles, and now probably g5 is one of the best moves, or rook a2, preparing to just put the other rook on the h5 after playing h4. But bishop g2 was played as also a decent move, just preparing to castle, or king f2, put the pieces away, and rook g1. And now knight a5. Magnus Carlsen just hits with the counterplay on the queen side. So notice that even though white wants to attack super aggressively on the king side, you just have to do what you wanted to do. For example, knight a5 with knight b3. And now we will do some forks. We will go queen a5, attack all the pawns. So the counterattack means that you are actually attacking like your opponent, but you're not looking for a checkmate. You're looking for a positional win. Castles, and now knight b3. The knight is perfectly placed on the queen side. Now we have to do something, because if we go, for example, rook there is just a5, a4, queen e7, and at some point these two pawns will be huge weaknesses. E4 is still interesting, try to open up everything, but that's a very, very, very difficult position to handle for both colors. But probably white is better. We can still take the pawn, but there is a lot of counterplay. Knight f4, e5, and knight there. The f5 is open, the queen will jump in. So that's a very unclear position. But okay, rook a2 instead of rook b1. And now b5, just launching, a pawn storm on the queen side. So usually we go for a pawn storm on the king side on which there is a king. But now there is no king, so you're just launching a pawn storm to create a passed pawn. And that is what counterplay means. You're just trying to win positionally while your opponent is trying to beat you dynamically, or vice versa. Knight g3, I don't like this move. I think that just playing, a4, except that you will open up the queen side, but in return, let's say a6 is not possible because there is a pin over there. But let's say we go, for example, takes, rook takes. There is only one pass pawn, which is easy to stop because there is the rook, there is all the pieces there. So that is only one counterplay, which isn't a real counterplay. And now knight g3, knight f5 makes a lot of sense. Because in the game, after knight g3, a5 was played. And if you go a4 right now, there is b4. And let's say we take, there are two passed pawns connected, and a4 is actually a target since it cannot march forward. So that's already almost lost. Knight c2, for example, rook a4. And that's it. If you go g5, there is nothing. I can even take on c1, you take back. Knight e8, I'm attacking the pawn, so f4, queen a5, and tell me that you're not scared. I mean, that is just game over. Bishop e6 is not even forced. I mean, there is no attack. If f5, c3, f6, you think you're smart, boom, you're not as smart as you thought. Because even if you manage to go on h6 with your queen, the knight on e8 is guarding everything. So it means that you need 1, 2, 3, 4 moves, and it's not mate. Bravo. And even if you put the rook, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's it. After h5, you take en passant, king h7. I can show you actually. Knight e2, h5 this, king h7, there is no more attack. I'm perfectly protected. Yeah. So let's go back. g5 was played instead of anything else, instead of a4. And now knight e8, preparing to bring the knight on the queen side. e4, and now knight takes c1, which is a great move. If you take on e4, you're just opening up everything. The file, the diagonal, and all the pieces that you have are on the back row. So, of course, after e4, Magnus decided to take on c1, queen takes on the move, and it isn't to actually get this pawn over there, but it is to play rook a6, preparing to actually double up the queen and the rook on the a file and push b4. We will almost see that. e5, and now actually it was important to play g6, which was cutting any kind of counterplay. If f4, you can go knight g7, and you're controlling the a5 square. You see a huge amount of time, so you're just winning now. You're just up a pawn, so there is no attack. But Magnus will go knight c7, which gives white a chance to actually get an advantage with f4, like Anand actually played. Now he will go f5, and if you go g6 now, f5 is not as good because you're missing, there is no knight on g7 guarding the a5 square. So that is already bad for white. So b4. And now I'm just opening up the queen side, and I will have a passed c pawn. And knight takes b4, which is just very bad. Now rook b2 was forced. That is that if you take there, rook a2, you don't have any passed pawns anymore. And if you go b3, but again, you're not having any pass pawns anymore. So now I can go f5 and g6. And let's say, for example, black goes rook b6. Again, f5, and there is a real counterplay issue. We cannot take the rook on b6 is hanging. So white just had to wait. Not even rook b2. Even f5 is a great move. But you have to wait. There is nothing. This is nothing. This is nothing. And this is bad. Yeah, at the very least, it is very bad. Even rook f2. I mean, you would just go for a real mating attack. It is the purest version of actually a pawn storm. But a4, now it is just opening up the queen side like Magnus Carlsen actually wanted. Rook a6, knight a6, just helping Magnus even more. And now f5, but now this is just too late because after b3, the pawn is ready to actually march forward. Queen f4, a good move. If you want f6 right now, there is just g6 and you can't teleport your queen to the g6 square. Let's say you try something like that. I can just go queen a5, b2, and even if you manage to go there, I have h5 again. If you take en passant, I have king h7 and there is no more attack. I mean, your own pawns are stopping you from attacking. So queen f4, eventually preparing g6, but now knight c7. I think I misclicked. It isn't a bad move. Probably, actually, this is the only move. So it's just that you have nothing. b2 is useless. So knight c7 is great. The idea is just to go knight b5. Probably I misclicked. But okay, f6. But now, of course, g6. There is no more attack. Queen h4, and now knight e8. h5 now doesn't make any sense because there is knight takes h5, which is, you know, super duper losing. Even if you go bishop f5, there is rook f5, so there is nothing, and you can't really stop the attack anymore. And knight e6, there is g6 opening up everything. And for example, rook f5. Notice that when the knight can take on h5, that is not good. So of course, knight e8 stopping any potential checkmate. But now Anand understood that we can just actually the only way to attack is just to use the h file. So what did Anand do? Queen h6, preparing rook f4, rook h4. b2, counterplay. If you go rook b1, I can just go queen a5. If you take there, check, easy peasy. And I want to take the pawn on c3. And if you defend, there is queen a2, or even worse, queen a1. And now if you take, I'm just taking there, I just won your rook. And that is, of course, winning. So b2, rook f4, and now b1 queen. There is only one move for white which holds the draw. And this move is very difficult. You have three pieces which can go on the f1 square and stop the check. King f2 is ridiculous. There is queen c2 and the queen will start to take all the pawns with check and at some point sacrifice it on itself on the rook. So there are three pieces. Rook f1 is dubious. The queen can just go back and now I'm just up a queen, and that is not good. And the rook wants to go on h4 anyway. If you go knight f1, the move of the game, we will see what happens. The only move is, of course, bishop f1. And now, if queen d1, which is the move, one of the moves that actually almost happened, rook h4, there is queen h5, knight takes, pawn takes, rook takes, and bishop f5, and the game goes on. Black is up a piece, but now we can feel that the attack is actually coming with g6, rook g5, or, you know, even even bishop h3. Now it is a real chess game which starts and the position is very difficult. Probably still equal, but it's not that clear. But knight f1 was played in the game, and knight f1 loses immediately because of queen e1, and we cannot play rook h4 anymore, which means that there is no more counterplay. And believe it or not, but in that position, Anand resigned. The lesson is, if you want to attack, you still have to be precise when your opponent is counter-attacking you. And if you want to know how to counter-attack even more, of course you can relook at this video as many times as you want, but just